Hi everyone, well, I'm Dave. By the time we retire, each of us on average will have worked 90,000 hours. Now I fundamentally believe that if we're going to spend that much of our lives at work, it should have had meaning. We must have provided some value somewhere. Also, I want us to have removed any of the frustrations of doing our job, not just for us, but also for our customers. And finally, I want to have fun. I want us to be in an environment where we can enjoy work. And I believe service design thinking takes us along that route. Now, I'm not going to go into service design methods, but I'm going to look at what we've been doing at Maastricht School of Management. And we're a company that actually we believe we're very customer service orientated. We're teaching our MBA in Yemen, for example, with the war going on. And we know that our processes are very good, but by taking a different approach, we've improved on our internal processes and our value to customers. And that's what I want to share with you, perhaps for you to hoist on board. So on one side, we have Sue. She works for an HR company. And then we have Maud. She actually does work for me, and she's representing business schools or higher education. They actually have the same frustrations. They're working really hard. And they're working in a similar sort of environment. They also have a symbiotic relationship, and that's with these people. This could be people from your company that wanting to do one of our executive courses, or in this case, this is our MBA students, our Masters in Management students. And typical of an international school, about 95% of our students come from outside of Europe. And over the past 2 years, we've seen a 55% increase in them actually wanting to stay and find jobs in Europe rather than going back home. So that's something that we need to address. What you also need to understand is there is a natural tension in higher education between those that believe we produce a product, this student with a piece of paper with Masters in Management, MBA, whatever, and because it's accredited by certain bodies, somehow if you're an HR in a company, you should take these people because they've achieved an intellectual level. Yeah, that's great. But if we are thinking more about ourselves as a platform or a service, then I'm interested in thinking outside of the bricks and mortar of my school. And what I'm interested in is getting people into jobs. Actually, I'm not even interested in creating managers. Our sole purpose is to create leaders that will get good quality jobs for you, that will hit the ground running on day one and are adaptable enough you can train them and get on going quickly. So good jobs at the appropriate level. But there is, like any change program, a little bit of inertia caused by this tension. Now, we need to look at service design hitting 3 pillars. I'm not going to talk about organization, but I am going to talk about internal processes, and I am going to talk about giving better value for the customer. So what have we done, if this works? This is the first bit of work we did. And we actually started using lean service creation developed by a company called Futurice, and actually their templates and handbook can be freely downloaded online. This is the sole document that directs the whole of our executive program. So worth hundreds of thousands of euros, this is it. There is nothing else. But by developing it as symbology, it sticks in the brain and indicated to our team that we're going to do business in a different way. What happened? Well, actually, we saw initially there was a mismatch between the responsibility that we given our people, our employees, and the authority that they'd had. We'd held authority up at too high a level. Once we delegated that down, that created a better decision-making process. They got responsible. That meant that we were saving time for them, and critically, time for directors, managers to think. Because they got comfortable with responsibility, that stopped FaceTime by email. We've all had the CCs, I'm absolutely sure. It reduced that magnificently. We also took a focus on what are we doing with our markets. We're looking at 2 different markets. How are we going to advertise? We completely redesigned our website, so we saved our customers time. And crucially, and most of you will have this problem, it gave us a reason and a rationale to logically argue for finances to make changes in the working environment of what we were trying to do. So really, it was a win-win. That's the internal processes. What about the customer? We actually done some research, and we reached out purely within the phase one, purely within the Netherlands, because that's where we are in Maastricht. Reached out, and we're directly cooperating with 250 companies, so pretty good feedback. And they actually said, yep, we are wanting MBA students, but it's a nice to have an MBA. It's not an essential. Unusually for the Netherlands, he said 68% of companies at the level they're recruiting, Dutch is not a requirement. English is perfectly good, so read across whichever country you're working in. But there were some crucial things that they're missing. Emotional intelligence, innovative thinking, and complex problem solving. Those are the three critical points they're missing. Also, there is a problem with MBA students trying to come into the workforce. They have a very high opinion of their value coming in, so wages was an issue. Also, coming into the workforce, many MBA students don't want to get their hands dirty, so you had a problem within the team. And finally, while these people were very good at talking theory, it became very different when they were trying to apply it. So these are critical things that we needed to address if I'm going to get somebody through to a job. Interestingly, also, all these companies said exactly the same thing. We're wanting international, globally aware people to come into our workforce, but we're really only looking at recruiting students from Europe. 95% of my students come from outside Europe, and I've got to bust through that HR filter somehow to get my good quality people to an interview at least so they can compete on level ground. That's the importance. So the so what is, what are we doing about it? If I take the top left slide, well, we're doing some different things from normal business schools. 2 of our teams just won the Dutch Internet of Things Challenge. This is pretty good for Maastricht School of Management, for our media image, if you like, for our branding. It's also opened up moving into other challenges and other areas for our students to take part in, agro and food supply chain being the newest thing that we're going to be involved in. Particularly for those students on their CV, just being a winner of a Dutch Internet of Things Challenge may be sufficient to get through that mindset of we're looking for people from Europe. And if that does, then it's been worth its weight in gold. Also, that slide refers to Industry 4.0. Ironically, for a small school in Maastricht, we are not that well known within Europe, but we are known globally. And we run bespoke programs. In fact, we're running for one of the largest steel corporations in the world, Bao Steel from China, sends their directors to us. Why? Because everything in this bespoke program is about service design thinking, from start to finish, the experience and the quality that they get. So we really focus on that. On the top right, what do we do differently? Our master's program requires a thesis, so a paper. It's always been an academic paper. We changed that. And now we're focusing on consultancy projects. What does this achieve? Well, for the student, it gets them perhaps through that HR filter because they're no longer an unknown faceless quantity. It may be in a field or company they're interested in, and they can do a high-protein consultancy project, so they become a known quantity. The slide you're seeing there, this was Friesland Campina that asked us to consult for them as part of the thesis, if you like, so an international multi-billion euro consultancy project. And they were absolutely delighted with what happened, the results, and acting upon it. But actually, there's something else which we found really useful as well. Our faculty, now if there's often a claim that great academics in higher education, not much experience in work, which can become a problem. But we found for our faculty, because they are mentoring the student in the consultancy, but they're also mentoring the client. And by osmosis and working in industry, they're picking up tips, they're learning what are the actual problems within the companies, within that branch sector, if you like. And that is enriching the program because they're rewriting their courses and they're able to answer questions relevantly or use case studies that they've experienced rather than something they've just downloaded from the website. So if you listen to Amazon tomorrow, that's that classic virtuous cycle. On the bottom left, what we're also doing is less and less of the classic lecturing, more and more of a simulation and situations, but we're not using VR. But what we're trying to do is get people to start making decisions and see the first and second order effects of those decisions, so really rapid fire. We also, within our MBA program, have a 2-week called a summer school, but really it's a specialization course. It's not just for our MBA students or master's students. We open it up to industry as well for people at master's level, focusing on themes such as entrepreneurship, digital transition, and international business sustainable development, for instance. Or perhaps thematically for healthcare, could be sports management, and we are developing our supply chain management as well because that's what the market requires. So we're giving relevance to our students within specific fields that they may be wanting to go in. And finally, so the bottom right as you're looking at it is our network. We have 20,000 alumni, and we have great active chapters in South America, Africa, and Asia, but we haven't really developed that area within Europe. So we need to invigorate that, and that's what we are doing. We also need to be much more connected. I want to get Sue in HR and Maud in working for me, starting working together and forming relationships that we can use. We have seen successes when we've been doing that for internships. And in fact, the Netherlands changed its rules so that we can get people after they've graduated, can stay on a year, and we're providing teams to companies for agile teams to help them with their processes and businesses. But critically, we want to be almost a feeder into business and into HR. So, in summation, service design thinking. It attacks those 3 issues that I said at the start. It can provide you a real sense of value or improve your value. It will remove the frustrations within the workforce for you and your client. And actually, when we've proven it, people are happier for us where we're working. But also what you're going to see today and over the next few days is the challenges that we've all got coming to the future. And somehow we've got to work out a strategy and be agile and adaptable. And if you take service design seriously and go through and apply yourself, it's going to assist you, firstly, in knowing what's the right thing to do, and then how do we do it right. Thank you.